very good morning. You're watching NewsX and I'm Shivani Singh. Republican senators have urged US President Donald Trump to push for favorable crop pulse provisions in any agreement with India, as the long-pending bilateral trade deal remains in limbo. The appeal came in a letter written by Senators Kevin Cramer and Steve Daines, just days after India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar held a phone conversation with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The two leaders discussed cooperation in trade, defense and security. They said that the issue should be raised during negotiations, as North Dakota and Montana are the top two producers of pulse crops in the US, including peas. The senators noted that India is the world's largest consumer of pulses, accounting for nearly 27% of global consumption. They also brought up the point that as a result of the unfair Indian tariffs, US pulse crop producers face a significant competitive disadvantage when exporting their high-quality product to India. While backing Trump's efforts to expand market access for the US agricultural commodities, the senator said that American farmers are ready to help fill the gap. Joining us on the broadcast is Shruti Dasgupta, Foreign Affairs expert, to help us understand this issue. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining us on the broadcast. We appreciate your time. Ma'am, if you can help our viewers understand what actually are these pulse crop provisions that these senators are talking about in trade deals with India.
Well, what happened in October 2025 was that India imposed a tariff of, I think, about 30% on yellow peas. And that significantly impacted the US exports to India. And that tariff is part of the entire pulse program that they are talking about, that India needs to lower tariffs or be more open to US agricultural produce. But India also produces 25 to, I think, 30% of the world's pulses. So we are a large pulse producer as well as consumer. So while the entire trade deal is occurring, they want these particular tariffs which have gone on which have been implemented in October to probably be repealed, as well as a favorable deal or a market opening to be given to US farmers for their pulse products, which India as of now restricts, because about 40 to 45% of Indian Indian employment depends on agriculture as such. So opening up agriculture to foreign nations at lower prices puts their jobs and livelihoods at risk. So these are finer nuances of the FTA, which is in limbo, as you have stated yourself, with the USA, that India is right now tackling. Not just there, even with the EU, we are tackling. We have kept agricultural sector out because we understand it is a vulnerable sector, and opening it up without proper understanding of the situation would lead to a larger unemployment, as well as downfall of the Indian economy, internal economy as such.
And ma'am, when we look at India per se, obviously we are seeing reciprocal tariffs by the US. We are also seeing threats of more tariffs being implemented by the US on India. So do you believe that India will go forward with this deal, which is still in limbo, and looking at these provisions that the US senators are talking about?
See, tariff is never a long-term situation for USA. They cannot support it, even though Trump tries to present the billions are being raked in. The billions are being paid by the American consumers. Inflation is on the rise, and by Finch and Moody's reports themselves, it is bordering on the risk of, depression as such. So they need to bring down tariffs, bring down the cost of living in USA, and to do that, they need to first, one, make sure that the internal rates of consumption are met by internal production, as well as whatever is coming from outside is not very highly priced. So tariffs were never a long-term solution. They were just a pressure tactic to see who blinks first. Unfortunately for USA, India has not blinked. Although we know, if I may just say this, that Since the tariffs have been imposed, Indian export to USA have been risen by 22%. I understand that the tariffs went into force much later in the year, and there was an initial push to kind of stock up of stuff before the tariffs came in, and that inflates the figures. The real impact will be measured in 2026. But before that, I would hope that the USA-India free trade agreement comes to fruition, because it would help both the economies to flourish and establish world trade, because the supply chains through India are much more reliable. India is a good partner to decouple from Chinese dependence. So USA should look towards Indian needs while planning the entire free trade agreement, not just on its own specific needs of making sure their consumers as well as their producers are happy.
Right. Thank you so much, Shruti Dasgupta, for joining us on the broadcast. With that, we are shifting focus to some